Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, it got a little weird on Thursday night, but I think that's okay. We had Kirk Barton out at the airport live streaming the arrival of a teenager to Columbus, Ohio. It felt like hotel arrival day, only like 5% weirder, or a little different. I don't know. I don't know if it was weird. I don't know if you can get weirder than hotel arrival day, but it was one of those like uniquely Columbus, Ohio, college football, Ohio State things that was just like, yep, this is the 16th largest metropolitan area in the entire country or something like that, and it still goes nuts for Ohio State football in a way that most places don't. So I think I find that charming. I think I've chosen to find that charming.
We have no choice but to be charmed by what we have seen and what we're experiencing now. And so, yes, even us today doing a third Buckeye Weekly show this week because of JT Tuimoloau, who is now in town. And Tom, you mentioned the arrival at the airport last night. Kirk was there, Mick was there, Channel 6 was there, other outlets were there. It was something that Kirk live streaming it gave people a window into something they've never been able to see before. I've never seen anything like this. Not that this is how it actually happens each time somebody comes into town. You're not going to send all the defensive coaches for every single defensive recruit. You're not going to send all the offensive coaches for every single offensive recruit. But it was a fascinating thing to watch coaches stand around and then greet the family. I was happy that like Kirk got an opportunity to get an idea of what it's like to cover the hotel check-in day. Granted, he didn't have to stand out in the July or the August sun to do it, and he got to stay in the air conditioning. But it was another example of just the kind of coverage, the interest. Although, Tom, while there was a lot of people loved it, there was almost 500 people on the stream at one point. There have been some criticisms of. I saw some Michigan folks criticizing, even some Ohio State fans criticizing it. I think what people also need to understand is like this is not a normal thing. This is stretched into June, and especially for like TV coverage, what are you talking about? Just baseball on your broadcast tonight? And so this isn't a typical thing. JT Tuimoloau is not a typical recruit, but even if he had committed in February or whatever, people are going to leave him alone in the airport. This was something way different, and it got different coverage because of that. Not necessarily because of who he is, but also because of when this is happening.
Right. This is literally the only official visit going on right now. So the coaching staff is focused entirely on him. He is the only 2021 recruit, that is still kind of going on his recruiting trips and doing this stuff. And he has the luxury of doing that because he's the number one player in the country. So everyone's going to hold the spot open for him. Most guys, if you're a 3-star wide receiver and you are like, well, I want to wait to take my official visit 6 months after signing day because the NCAA had this dead period and I couldn't do it. And I really want to make sure I make an informed decision. Like schools are not holding the spot for you if you are a 3-star wide receiver. At least Power 5 schools are not holding a spot for you. When you're the number one player in the country, well, you have that luxury of waiting a little longer. Terrell Pryor did that about 10 years ago. He did not have the excuse of a pandemic. He just strung it out a little longer than typical. But so there's like the reason all the coaches can show up there is because there's no other official visits right now. The reason all the coaches do show up there is because this is not a normal player. This is not a typical player. This is here's the thing. Statistically, I know I talk about math a lot on this show. Statistically, there is only one number one player in each class. That is an important distinction. Ohio State has the one for 2022. They would really like to get the one for 2021. We may have seen the one who might be number one in 2023, Mantoyo Uiagalelei at Ohio State's camp earlier in the week. But there's only one of them every year. Statistically, historically, they tend to be pretty big difference makers at the collegiate level. So yeah, all of that adds up to there's going to be some unusual attention put on this one.
It was just interesting to watch. And of course, Kirk is sitting there for, 35 or 40 minutes waiting for this because the plane was delayed. And so he was just answering questions and talking with people on the stream. Just really interesting. I would say go back and watch it, but just be prepared. Like it's going to be 50 minutes of, a live stream of somebody waiting at the airport for somebody to arrive. And chatting it up here and there with coaches and whatnot, but you're just, I mean, waiting at the airport. I know I'm not doing a very good sell job, but and he wasn't the only one. And there are plenty of other people there as well. It was interesting, very interesting to watch though.
It was extremely interesting to watch. And, if we did 17 of these, I don't know if the 17th would be nearly as compelling as the first, but you're right. I mean, this is kind of what we do. Like, this is the view of the thing that you don't normally get to see. This is your peek behind the curtain at like how this actually all happens, how this actually all works. And like, yeah, sometimes a bunch of Ohio State coaches stand around the airport in Polynesian shirts, waiting for a plane to arrive that happens to carry a very good football player on it. And they're standing there waiting for half an hour. Like, this is one of these stars. They're just like us things. Like, there were probably about $7 million worth of football coaches standing there. But like, guess what they're all doing? They're standing there waiting for a plane to arrive. Like we've all been there. And, but yeah, that was super interesting to me just to see what this actually looks like. I did the Friday morning scoop I did with Kirk that was like a look at what actually goes on an official visit. And you guys will probably like that show. I had a really, really, really interesting conversation with him on that. It's like, this is one of these things that you hear about all the time. Like, you hear about guys going on official visits, but you don't actually get to see or actually hear what specifically is going on. It's like, we talked about stuff. I met with the coaches. You see the picture of them all shaking hands in Ryan Day's office. That's about all you see from an official visit. Typically, this is like very much a peek behind the curtain thing, just because this is such an unusual recruitment.
The hotel check-in day, it's always fun because there are literally, 30 or 40 media members with their phones, and some have cameras shooting, and mostly just standing around and waiting. And so this is at a hotel, so you have actual regular people, the civilians, checking into the hotel, and they're like, what famous person is staying here? Is it Ariana Grande? Is it, who is here? And there's here comes the freshman bus with the 18-year-olds. And so you had the same thing going on with people getting off the plane and walking down and like looking and seeing like, why are there television cameras? Hey, that's Ryan Day. I heard one person say, "Oh, there must be a big recruit in town." And yes, there is. It was a peek behind the curtain. I know a lot of people, they'll see like photos from it. Oh, I'm sure you just show up and you get there right when it's time to take photos, and you snap the photos, and then you're out of there. No. There's a lot of casting the rod and just sitting there in the boat, just waiting. And it's like the fish haven't even arrived yet. I don't know why you're casting your line out there. There's nothing going on yet. So there's a lot of sitting and waiting. And boy, that's really a lot of this job back as I think about it now. But we don't need to complain about that. But one of the positive aspects that Ohio State is going to show from the media coverage, they're going to take that and say, look, JTT, this is just you coming into town. There is so much attention on the program, so many eyes on the program. This leads directly into how we can help you with name, image, and likeness, because you're already known. Now just imagine once you get the scarlet and gray on, and the July 1st name, image, and likeness will likely be enacted. And from there's no telling where things can go for him.
Yeah, and this is a sort of unique market where it's a pretty big city. I think it's the 16th largest metropolitan area and like the 10th largest city in the country. So it's a pretty big media market. There's a lot of money here. Ohio State is uniquely positioned as the flagship state institution of a really, really big state that also doesn't have any competition. There's not 5 schools like there are in Florida, or 8 schools or whatever it is in Texas. I mean, like it's like LSU and Ohio State are basically the two that are kind of like this in the country, where it's the only FBS, Power 5 school in that state, in a football crazy state. And Ohio is a lot bigger than Louisiana is. So yeah, there is a really uniquely positioned opportunity here. And I don't know, before you get to Columbus, if you really understand how football crazy Columbus is and the state of Ohio is, and like specifically college football crazy and specifically Ohio State crazy. Like every time you look at the TV ratings for games, it is Columbus, Birmingham, and then I don't know who else is on the list, but there's a lot of like Ohio State games. It's like, the Ohio State Michigan game, or, half the time it's like a Michigan game, and it's like the high, it's Detroit and then it's Columbus, like, because Ohio State fans want to know what's going on with Michigan. And that is not normal. That is not the ratings that Ohio State football games get in Columbus are just insane. I have not worked in TV, worked in TV for a while, but I remember back in like 2002, Ohio State would routinely pull like ratings of like 50 for games. Like that's like sort of like the Super Bowl, only way more. And that's just like Columbus is like that. Dayton is like that. Cleveland's a little lower. Cleveland's like in the 30s or the 40s. And then, Cincinnati's a little lower than that. But it's just, this is not normal. And, you think about what happens around Columbus, like Michigan week, all the M's are crossed off and it's not just on campus. You go into Chipotle and you got all the M's are crossed off on the soda machine. I mean, this is not normal. And I don't know that people necessarily completely grasp how football crazy this is until they get here. But the fact that it's a big city, a big state, and it's so football crazy means like, you want to talk about NIL opportunities? Like, yep, this is the place.
You could just have a running scroll of all of the businesses that have headquarters here or, are in Columbus and all of these different opportunities depending on, and you'll be able to almost just like pick, oh, okay, hook me up with these people, hook me up with those people. Like, you're ordering from a kiosk. Okay, I'll take a call with the Limited. I will take a call with Wendy's, that sort of thing. Because there are a ton of opportunities and they're going to do everything they can to put the two together. And, but again, then, you wonder, is that what the player is interested in? And this is where like Mark Mantoni and the coaches all have to know what is the best sell job for JT Tuimoloau, because maybe, and it seems crazy to say this, like maybe NIL isn't all that big. I do wonder, like, if that's not your thing, doesn't it have to become like, how would you be able to ignore it? I don't think anybody can ignore it. Like, I prefer, like, say a recruit who's like, I just want to win championships, or I want to be developed. I don't really care about NIL. Once you start getting that presentation, how do you ignore that?
Well, it can be something that doesn't consume your life and isn't the central focus of your life. But if someone wants to give you $50,000 for a sponsored Instagram post, which is like, if you look at Justin Fields' Instagram following, based on his Instagram following, he could have gotten $50,000 for a sponsored Instagram post for like, hey, I'm Justin Fields for whatever, Uno, for Uno the dog. And, I don't know how the dog got $50,000 to pay me, but hey, consider buying small dogs. Thank you. #ad. And he gets $50,000 for that. Like that is like the going market rate for someone with the number of Instagram followers Justin Fields has. That doesn't have to be something that consumes your life if you're not super worried about it, if you're not super interested in it. But if you're the number one player in the country and you come to Ohio State and you start making an impact in the field, you start making a name for yourself nationally, your Instagram follower is going to go up, 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 up. Tuimoloau is a little unique because he's a very private guy. Maybe that, Ohio State does the brand you thing with him and starts to get him a little more public facing, at least for NIL purposes. And that starts to grow. But, this does not have to be something, and you frankly don't want it to be something that is the number one concern of you coming into college. Like this should be an ancillary selling point. This is not the first thing they're necessarily mentioning to him, but this is an opportunity to make a decent amount of money, live a comfortable life. I don't know a lot about his parents' background, but a lot of guys will send money back home to parents. And if you can do, 5 Instagram posts and pay off your parents' house, like, guess what? Like, I don't know if you care about that. I bet they do. I bet that would be cool for them. If he wants to send me $50,000 and help pay off my house, I wouldn't mind that. Like, that would be okay with me. But it doesn't have to be an all-consuming thing. But the opportunity is big enough that I don't think you can ignore it, even if you don't really care about it.
Yeah, no, you make a good point, because it's so easy to just send out a couple of Instagram posts and do a lot of good with that. You mentioned the ratings for television. It's like Birmingham or Columbus, one or the other. Dayton is like 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 in there as well. But with social media interaction, Ohio State is always at the top, and Ohio State tweets that out a lot. The social media interaction with all of their tweets and the Instagrams, like whenever they tweet it, it's like they are like 30 or 40% higher than other schools, the number of interactions. And so that plays into we can build your Instagram following. We can build your bottom dollar. And that's, that's real. That's real money. Then another aspect, let's talk about on the field. We've been talking about off the field stuff. On the field, if you're a defensive lineman and you want to be developed into the best version of yourself, there are not many better places or any better places. You'd have to convince me there are better places than Ohio State for a defensive end to go, based on how well Larry Johnson has done with his defensive ends, putting them into the NFL constantly. Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, Chase Young. Yes, they were physically, they're probably first rounders wherever they go. I don't know that they're top 3 draft picks wherever they go without Larry Johnson and teaching them all of the different little techniques and ways to win and ways to get quicker, and just the minutia that raises your game from a great player to a next level special player, because that's what he does. And for JT Tuimoloau, yeah, he's great, but you need to get better each year, and you need somebody who is so intently focused on every aspect of what you do on the field and is always looking for ways to perfect something. You were talking with one of the camp shows and either previewing something or recapping something and talking about how Larry Johnson, even with these high school kids, is like, get your foot up a little bit more. And like, he's such a technician. He loves this stuff and is always looking for ways to make people better. And, there's no amount of time he won't spend on JT Tuimoloau to get him to where he needs to be. And he does that for everybody, and he does it better than anybody else.
Yeah, Larry Johnson is it's remarkable to watch him at those camps, because it's, he's been doing this for, how long has he been a college coach? 30 years, 25, 30 years at least, maybe more. And, he's going through these reps with these guys who we're looking at and we're like, this guy doesn't have a 247 page. Like it literally does not have a recruiting profile page. I have no idea who this kid is. And Larry Johnson is coaching them just like he's coaching the other guys. Like he loves teaching and coaching college football. Loves it. Like, this is one of these find a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Like, very clearly, there are days when it's hot. There are days when it's like, all right, like it's 90 degrees. There's no one out here who's ever going to play at Ohio State or ever going to play at a team that plays at Ohio State. Like, I would rather be somewhere else. Like, Larry Johnson, you never see that at Larry Johnson. Larry Johnson legitimately loves to be out there, and he's been doing this for a million years. So it's not, this is not like, oh, the thrilling first time I did this. No, this is the 30th time, and he's still watching, cheering, enthusiastic, clapping, correcting little stuff. That's the kind of attention to detail that turns you into maybe the best talent developer in the country. I just went back while you were talking. I was Googling. Rashawn Gary and Nick Bosa were in the same high school recruiting class. Rashawn Gary was rated number 1. Nick Bosa was rated number 8. They were both first round picks, because you have, like you said, this goes to your point. Like, you've got the raw material there. They're both first round picks. So, because you have, no matter how developed you are or not developed you are, the talent is the talent, the size, the quickness, it's all there. You're going to be, unless you really screw up, you're going to be a first round pick. Rashawn Gary was the number 1 overall player in the class. His first NFL contract was $15 million. Nick Bosa was the number 8 player in his class. His contract was $33 million. Like, that's Larry Johnson. That is Larry Johnson right there. That's it. And, I think what's going to be interesting to see is the kids who are maybe more focused on NIL. And it's like, well, I might make $250,000 more at some other school than I would at this school. It's like, yes, well, if you're not getting developed as much, then, yes, you're making $250,000 more right now, but you might be costing yourself $19 million in 3 years. That's a difficult trade-off. And, everyone is in a different situation in their lives, and maybe the immediate cash infusion is the most important thing. But, there is a short-term versus a long-term conversation to be had there. And, I think that you're probably, in most cases, that is going to be number one. One of the things that Ohio State is selling even more than the NIL piece is the NFL piece. Get coached, get coached by Larry Johnson. I mean, these guys are all Joey Bosa, 3 and out, top 3 pick. Nick Bosa, 3 and out, top 3 pick. Chase Young, 3 and out, top 3 pick. Like there is a roadmap here. It is very possible that Zach Harrison is the next guy who's kind of on that like 5-star, 3 years. You know, you're seeing him projected as like a top 5, top 10 kind of pick again next year in some of those early mock drafts. It's entirely possible he's on that track. It's entirely possible Jack Sawyer is on that track. JT Tuimoloau could be on that track. And then you've got guys coming in the coming years. There's some big names that Ohio State's already in on the defensive end position. Like the recipe is there. The formula is there. This isn't like theory. This is like, here's what happens. Like you come to Ohio State and you start as a cornerback, you're going to get drafted. You come to Ohio State as a 5-star defensive end, you're going to make a crap load of money in the NFL because that's what Larry Johnson does.
Even guys like Sam Hubbard and Tyquan Lewis, I was just looking up their contracts. They're both coming into the final year of their rookie deals. And Sam Hubbard's like going to be making like $2.2 million. Tyquan Lewis is going to be making over $1 million. And then they get finally to their first opportunity to hit the free agent market, which is when you can make the real money, since they've changed the draft salaries a few years back. But yeah, you take, I know Larry Johnson loves these blocks of clay, but he also loves the guys that are pretty much molded like Chase Young and Nick Bosa and Joey Bosa. And then he can really tweak some stuff and put the racing stripes on it and, stuff like that and get the most out of them. And, there's just a lot to sell in that regard. And I'm guessing there's going to be, remember we go to the WAC and there would be like placard boards of, any type of thing that Ohio State, any information they wanted to show off, like this is our GPA this semester, and this is how many of these we've got. I'm sure Larry Johnson defensive line salaries is going to be in there, like total money, total dollars earned is going to be one of those things. And that's hard to ignore. And that's the real money compared to, $50,000 for an Instagram post sounds like a lot. Let me tell you about $120 million contract that you could be having in say 7 years once you hit the open market. But if the fit isn't there, then you are not going to be able to maximize yourself. What Ohio State does with their defensive ends and defensive line in total, Larry Johnson his theory has always been just rush the passer and we'll get if they're running the ball, we'll stop the run on the way to the quarterback. So he wants an aggressive defensive line. He wants his defensive ends to get to the quarterback, and then if the running back is there, go ahead and take him out as well. And so he wants an aggressive pass rush. That's what he coaches. That's what defensive ends want. They want to be getting after the quarterback. They don't want to be occupying blockers and just remember like the strong side defensive end where you just hold the edge. And Larry Johnson's like, no, let's just collapse everything and then meet in the middle. And that also has to be an enticing thing for JT Tuimoloau, who, he's a high school kid who has always gone after the quarterback. That's what just go get the quarterback. Okay, that's what I like to do. Now you're talking my language. And that's what Ohio State is going to want him to do. Is that what everybody else is going to want from him? Is that what Alabama with the 3-4? That's a little bit different.
Yeah, Mark Givler had a really interesting piece. If you search his column, I've tweeted it out a couple times this week. It is really interesting on what Ohio State is actually going to be selling to JT Tuimoloau during this recruiting visit. And one of them is structurally the Ohio State defense is set up for him to be doing much more, be much more active, probably much more statistically productive than the Alabama defense is. And I'm not going to go into a ton of details because you should become a member of BuckeyesScoop.com and read Mark's thing, and because he explained it really in a really interesting way. But there are some opportunities to probably be more statistically productive at Ohio State. There are and probably just have more fun at Ohio State in a lot of ways in that defense. You're not just kind of a plugger, you're a producer. And you've got that track record of you want to, how productive can you be? Well, Chase Young just set the single season school sack record, and Joey Bosa almost broke the single season school sack record. And if Nick Bosa hadn't gotten hurt, Nick Bosa might have broken the single season school sack record. Like, the track record is there. Now you just got to put in your time, work on your get off, work on your hand fighting, all the stuff that Larry Johnson loves to work on, and you'll get there too.
And to be able to work, like we've already got Larry Johnson going to be like, we've already got Jack Sawyer on one side. We get another guy on the other side. Like, I think that's a selling point for all defensive linemen when it's not just you, and it's never going to be just JT Tuimoloau. It could be JT and Jack Sawyer 3 and out, basically. And, 3 and out literally on the field, and 3 and out in terms of 3 years and out. And shoot, I should be part of Ohio State's branding efforts. I could be making at least 5% of what they're going to be, putting out there. So, 3 and out. That's fantastic, Tony. Good job. But really, like,
wait. What number does JT Tuimoloau wear in high school?
33.
What number did Jack Sawyer wear in high school?
33.
I'm going to say 33 and out. Thoughts?
That's interesting as well. I think between the two of us, 5% each, 10% of whatever. Finder's fee. Is that right?
This is 5% of the gross revenue of Ohio State football.
Yes.
I would even take 4%. But go on. Sorry to interrupt you.
Although it is a nonprofit, so does it all come down to like zero anyway?
That's why it's the gross, Tony. I'll explain the difference between gross and net after we record the podcast.
But just putting those two together, that has to be a selling point as well. And not that Alabama or Oregon wouldn't have somebody on the other side, but to have like the top 2 defensive ends in the class paired together for 3 years, that is that in itself is a selling point to me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's an opportunity you're not going to get anywhere else. You're going to have the opportunity to play as a true freshman. You have a bunch of really talented players ahead of you. Guys like Tyreek Smith and Zach Harrison. Like, these are really, really fantastic players who are going to be NFL players probably a year from now. So you're going to be in the rotation as a true freshman. And then as a sophomore, if those guys are off to the NFL, guess who are probably the starting defensive ends for the next 2 years for Ohio State? JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer. And, that is, you have the development time, you have the on-field reps, you have the advantage that we've talked about in a bunch of shows previously where the offensive tackles are not rotating. So the offensive tackles, when they are 50, 60 snaps into their day, you're 30 snaps into your day. Guess what? You're fresher, you're quicker, you're going to be even more productive because of that depth. But you also have the ability to be on the field immediately. And, I'll be interested to see what Tuimoloau's learning curve is like when he gets to Ohio State, because Sawyer went through spring ball. That's a big leg up. If he walks onto campus on August 1st and has a month of camp and that's it, and hasn't been working with Coach Mick before that, that's going to be really interesting to see how quickly he can make an impact. He may be someone who, again, let's just presume he gets to Ohio State and comes to Ohio State. He may be someone who early in the season, like he's just kind of like, they just put him in on 3rd and long. And it's just like, all right, see the guy who's taking the ball, go get him, and just like try and let him rely on natural ability, because there is going to be a development curve there, because he didn't have the ability to go through spring ball because of when he decided to make his decision. So it may be a little bit, Sawyer may start a little bit ahead of him, but I mean, if the two of them are together for 2-3 years, like, and they both stay healthy, like, name me the Big Ten team that has 2 tackles that can block 2 of those guys with a year or 2 of college experience under Larry Johnson.
This year's Ohio State?
Maybe, yeah, maybe. And then go around the country, and how many other teams are there? I mean, and it's theoretically possible that 2023 could be the first season of the 12-team playoff. So these guys could be the opposite defense, the opposite side defensive ends, or the defensive end and the 3-tech rushing next to each other in the first 12-team college football playoff. I mean, there's a lot going on there, but yeah, it's intriguing to me, which makes me think it's probably pretty intriguing to JT Tuimoloau as well.
Yeah, and every great pass defense starts with the defensive ends, starts up front, and once you've got that makes your corners better, makes your safeties better. So after this visit, he'll be here Friday, Saturday, and depart on Sunday, heading for Oregon. We'll be there for a couple of days, and then next Friday we'll be in Alabama. And then, by the end of the month, by the beginning of July, he'll have to make his decision. I've seen people say, well, there's dragging it out this long, there's no way he's going to play this year. And Chase Young didn't enroll early. Nick Bosa didn't enroll early. Joey Bosa didn't enroll early. Nick Bosa came to Ohio State still rehabbing from an ACL. And they took him through camp so slowly so that he would be 100% by like the week before the first game. So they brought him along slowly, and he was just fine. Joey Bosa was just fine. So it's not like there's a lot of football going on, right now or in May, and missing spring is, you'd rather be there, but it doesn't mean you're not going to play this season. It has never meant that. It just increases your chances of playing. And so he was definitely going to be put in a position, if he signs with Ohio State, or doesn't even have to sign anymore, if he enrolls at Ohio State. And I keep going back to Chase Young in 2017, where Larry Johnson kept saying, I just don't want to put him in a bad situation. Only want to put him in situations where he can succeed, with like him and Jonathan Cooper, that same point where, like you said, Tom, third and long, there's not a lot of things that can go wrong. So just pretty much sure what's going to happen. So go get the quarterback, and then you build your confidence and you see what works and you learn from that playing time. So I absolutely think he's going to play this year wherever he goes. How well he plays, we'll see. I mean, the coaches sure seem to think he's pretty good, because there are a lot of them there at the airport to bring him in, and there's a lot of expectations. And then, of course, you're likely losing Tyler Friday and Tyreek Smith after this year, provided they don't come back. Zach Harrison can very well leave. And even if Tyreek Smith or Tyler Friday do come back, that doesn't mean JT Tuimoloau isn't playing. It just means now you've got you're deeper, and the rotation is deeper, because I don't know how set or how happy they are with their entire defensive line room in terms of the defensive ends. And like, I don't know that anybody's going to be in front of JT Tuimoloau that is like, the young guys like a Cormonte Hamilton or Darian Henry or Jacoby Cowan. We'll have to see how that goes. But you get him on campus, and he's going to play. They're going to put him in a situation where he can have fun, where he can succeed, where he can utilize his skill set, and then just grow. And no better place in Ohio State in terms of a defensive end or defensive lineman than working with Larry Johnson.
And you also have to consider the transfer portal piece of this, which is, if you say, you're not ready, you're not ready. Dan Wilkinson back in the day, redshirted as a freshman at Ohio State. And now Dan Wilkinson probably redshirts as a freshman at Ohio State and then hits her transfer portal and goes and transfers to Alabama or something like that. And, I don't think that is something that probably would have played out a little differently in this era than it did in the early 90s. I don't think you can keep someone like that off the field, because if they're not happy, there are plenty of other people telling them, we will make you happy. What would you like to do? Would you like to play defensive end? Would you like to play quarterback? We've seen your high school film. You want to play some tight end and goal line situations? That's fine. Whatever you want to do, man. We will make your dreams come true. You don't have the ability to just, this is not the old NCAA 13 game where it's just like, well, I'm just going to redshirt everyone and then they'll all be better in a year. Like, no. Like, this is someone who's coming to come Ohio State, and he's coming to Ohio State to play. All the coaches are at the airport because they know he can play. Like, this is a big deal, because this is someone that they think can be a difference maker, probably pretty immediately, and then continue to grow as a difference maker throughout his career. It is a deep defensive end room. There are a lot of bodies in there, but I would expect him to be in that, sometimes it's a 4-man rotation, sometimes it's a 6-man rotation, Larry Johnson rotates, and, you put him at end, slide him inside in that rush man package on third down. This is, get ready to hear Kirk Herbstreit saying the words, pinning his ears back. Young fella pinning his ears back. Go ahead and put that on your fall Ohio State football business bingo card. Maybe Gus Johnson, because there's a bunch of Fox Big Saturday, Big Noon games. Maybe you'll have Gus Johnson talking about pinning his ears back. I'm not sure, but I definitely hear Kirk Herbstreit in my head already talking about, hey, look at the young fella pinning his ears back and getting after the quarterback.
Got that look in his eyes.
He does have that look in his eyes.
The other good thing for him, and we'll wrap it up here, is, there are big expectations, but there's no sort of heavy weight on his shoulders this year. He can be eased into this thing, and I think that is also a draw where don't worry if things go slowly for you. We've got 5 other defensive ends. We got 4 other defensive ends that played last year. We got Jack Sawyer. There are other young guys that also will get to play. So it's not like we're asking you to come in and save us. So there's no savior type of thing going on here. It's more about ease you in and then develop you. And we're not. You don't need to come in and rescue us from the secondary. Not that the secondary is going to be bad, but there's some just there is pressure at Ohio State, but right now we'll wait until your sophomore year. So I think that's also a plus.
Yeah, for sure. You're coming in. You have lots of opportunity. Probably a lot. I mean, realistically, there are a lot of expectations. At least externally, there are a lot of expectations. But there's not necessarily going to be a ton of demand put on him this year. He's not in a you have to play immediately. You have to come in and be the savior or the season is doomed. Like that's not at all what that is. You have the opportunity to come in, learn, play a little bit, continue to grow. He's playing more in November than he is in September. All that stuff, at least in the first half of games. He's probably going to see a bunch of him in the second half of like the Akron game or the Tulsa game, I'm guessing. But that is going to be something that, the opportunity is there to get on the field early. The opportunity is there to grow. The opportunity is there to, when the games really start to mean something. I mean, there's the Oregon game early, and then there's not a whole heck of a lot else in September. But by the time you get into the Michigan Big Ten championship game, college football playoff semifinal, national championship game, like you're ready to be a contributor there. Defensive end is a spot where you can get on the field early and make an early contribution. You're ready to be a contributor there when the lights are really bright and the games really matter the most.
I'm expecting, say, Ohio State is leading like 42-0 in the third quarter against Akron. Larry Johnson's going to pull JT Tuimoloau aside, like, I'm going to put you in the game. Don't lose this for us. And then send him out there.
Can you imagine Akron's 2 offensive tackles in the third quarter of 56-2 Ohio State lead? And here comes Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau. Like, oh man, that is like pray for mojo right there. Like, oh man, that is.
There is no college degree worth that.
Akron's quarterbacks maybe tapping themselves with, hey, no, you need a rest. Can someone else come in, please?
Just take a dive right there. Football. I need a stretcher.
No, thank you. Need that magic soccer freezing spray to heal me.
I've been watching a lot of soccer, so that's the first thing that comes to mind is just go down. And then they'll come out and squirt you with water and be like, no, that's not working. No water. I need help. Bring out the ambulance. Anything else, Tom, before we get out of here? I thought this is very interesting to talk about, necessary to talk about. And it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it is. It is a pretty big deal. It is a very unique situation. And like, man, oh man, has this been a fascinating week at Buckeye Scoop? Like, holy smokes. The amount of stuff that we've had turned out. Nevada has had some really interesting stuff on the Tuimoloau visit. Mark, I mentioned earlier, had the really, really good insight on what Ohio State is really selling him on. Kirk and I did a podcast for the Morning Scoop on Friday about what is going on with official visits. Kirk had that live stream. Mick had a photo gallery from the airport. I mean, and then Bill Green had 2 separate bank blogs on Wednesday night, just with all the stuff he learned from football camp, Ohio State football camp on Wednesday. Really, really interesting stuff, talking to a former Ohio State assistant about some really, really interesting stories about stuff that happened behind the scenes. I mean, and then did an all-day chat on Thursday. I mean, this is like, someone called it the Voltron is like really coming together. Like, this is the first time we've been here for a year, and it's like we haven't actually gotten to all really work together on like a really big story. This is like, oh, okay, it's all coming together now. This is what this looks like, and it has been really, really cool. And and now we're going into probably a lot of kids committing very quickly, very soon, as soon as these visits all wrap up. And then you're getting into Big Ten Media Days, and you're getting into fall camp, and you're getting into football season. It's like, boy, this is a year that just isn't going to slow down now. This is just how life is, and it is pretty fun to be on there and seeing all that. Even
while we're talking, like on our Scoop group text, I guess the Scoop text we could call it. There's discussions of a new 5-star information there. So Like it's constantly, there's stuff constantly going on, and Tom did a great job explaining everything that has been happening this week. And then I think Bill even had like another bank blog Thursday morning and then did his chat. And there's just, I'm, because I'll throw up some of his bank blogs on the front page, and at one point there's just too much going on. I can't get to it. There's just too much going on, and it's been a whale of a month. Been fun to watch. Been fun to be a part of, and $12.99 a month. Come on.
And if you sign up now, sign up before July 4th, and you get you're automatically entered for a chance to win 4 tickets to the Oregon game, and those are Nevada's tickets. So Nevada does not sit high up in South Stands. Let's put it that way. So you probably get 4 pretty darn good tickets to the Oregon game, which the last time I looked were going for like $400 a pop as like the get-in price on StubHub. So that might be worth your entering for the raffle there. Might be worth the price of admission all by itself, but then you also get all the great stuff that everyone on the staff is doing. So yeah, I mean, like this would be a good time to give it a shot because there's a lot going on, and also 4 tickets to the Oregon game might be worth exploring.
I wish people that haven't done it would have like gotten in on the first of the month and just seen what June was, but we don't need to sell it anymore, Tom. People know. So I guess that'll do it then. We'll be back next week for, I don't know how many shows. Who's to say at this point? Maybe we go to 4. I don't know. Just depends on what's happening. We're here at the airport. We're waiting. If anybody else is here, we'll find them and we'll do a show about it. So thank you all for listening. Thank you guys for watching, and we will talk to you next week.